My name's Chris Mcewan, and it's truly an honor to be here today. There's all kinds of things we could complain about, right? It's rainy and cold. There's no parade. We don't have that beautiful big flag flying off Westwood's ladder truck. There's no high school or middle school band because they haven't played together in a year. We're stuck under a tent. It's a little muddy. There's not many chairs, but we're here, and that makes it all good. So I would love to have as many of Westwood's Girl Scouts come up and lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. How many of you Girl Scouts and Brownies and Daisies are going to come on up here? Come on up. If everybody can stand, the flag is right here. Why don't you guys circle up? Someone hold that, and everybody speak right into the microphone. You start whenever you're ready, okay? Ready? Go ahead.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much. And now Father Paul Soper from St. Margaret Mary's Church will lead us in invocation.
Let us pray. Lord God, Master of the universe, we pour out our hearts in prayer to you this morning. We thank you for the gift of life and of liberty and of joy and of remembrance. We ask you to fill us with gratitude as we delve into our own memories and the memories of our nation. We thank you for the spacious skies and the hills of grain. We thank you for nobleness and generosity. We thank you for abundance and compassion. We thank you today most fervently for the courage of the men and women who have fought to make and keep our nation free, even to the shedding of their own blood. Make us, Lord, worthy of their sacrifice. Strengthen our national character. Make us good people. Fill us with virtue and with mercy. Continue, please, to protect us and our families from all that could harm us. We ask this in your most holy name. Amen.
Thank you, Father Soper. And now Dan Clark, for the I don't know how many th years here at our Memorial Day observance, will lead us in song.
And it's umpteenth honor, sir. Thank you so much. I hope you'll all join because this song comes right from the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. And every time I open the Boston Marathon, I tell the story about the young lady who wrote it because you see, she was one of the first literary professors at the great Wellesley College. She traveled this great nation. She made it all the way out to the Rocky Mountains, to Pikes Peak. And in 1893, she climbed Pikes Peak while she was seated on the back of a mule. She got on top of the mountain, she looked back over this nation, she was so moved by everything that she saw, she wrote a poem. Now that poem was put to music and is so beloved, many people think that this song should actually be our national anthem. If you go down to Falmouth, Massachusetts on Cape Cod, right in front of the public library, there's a beautiful statue of this young lady in her honor. Her name is Catherine Lee Bates, and she wrote America the Beautiful. This is the only song that is authorized to be played during the folding of the flag over a veteran's coffin. Please join with me. America the Beautiful.
Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for a
shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. Oh, beautiful for heroes proved in liberating strife, who more than self the country loved, and yeah, more than life. Come on. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crown thy good with brotherhood from sea to shining sea. America, the beautiful of
Dan, thank you very much. That was awesome. If you have a seat, please be seated. We're going to have Westwood Fire Department's Jonathan Cook, who is a Civil War reenactor, tell us a bit about the Gettysburg Address. And then Sarah Luna Sassine is going to read Lincoln's Gettysburg Address for us.
I apologize. I wasn't expecting to pop up here quite so quick. Can't read the speech without glasses. Good morning. In a few moments, we will be hearing Abraham Lincoln's famous Gettysburg Address. The significance of these words is not always appreciated because many are unfamiliar with the story behind it. For this address was noted not only for its powerful words, but also for its timing. For this address was, it was given at a crucial point in our nation's history when our very existence as a nation was hanging in the balance. In July of 1863, the Civil War was entering its third summer of bloody fighting. The Confederate Army of Northern Virginia, under the command of General Robert E. Lee, despite being outnumbered, had defeated the Union Army of the Potomac in battle after battle. Up until this time, most of the fighting had taken place in the South. Now the Confederates were invading the North. Lee's plan was to capture Harrisburg, Pennsylvania, and then push east and possibly capture Philadelphia. With any luck, he might even threaten Washington, D.C., and force the Yankees to sue for peace and finally recognize the Confederate States of America. This was a distinct possibility, given the fact that the war had lasted much longer than anyone had expected, and the growing casualties far exceeded everyone's imagination. Lee's army had to be stopped. The Union Army of the Potomac, 90,000 strong, under the command of Major General George Meade, pursued the Confederates into Pennsylvania. Eventually, they would meet Lee's 70,000 rebels at the small college town of Gettysburg. Gettysburg was the county seat of Adams County. It was intersected by no less than 10 roads converging from all points of the compass. It was a good junction for armies to converge. At the time of the battle, Gettysburg had a population of 2,400 citizens. Now, more than 150,000 soldiers descended upon the town to fight in its streets and surrounding countryside. It would be the greatest battle ever fought in the Western Hemisphere. After 3 days of desperate combat, the Union Army was victorious. The Confederate Army retreated back into Virginia, excuse me, with a wagon train of wounded that stretched several miles. Although the war would continue for nearly 2 more years, never again would the rebel army invade the North. When the citizens of Gettysburg emerged from their cellars and hiding places, they were shocked at the aftermath of battle. Many of the buildings were damaged or destroyed, and the landscape was littered with the debris and carnage of battle. The cost was 53,000 casualties, including nearly 10,000 bodies which needed to be buried, and nearly 20,000 wounded that needed care. Churches, schools, businesses, and homes all became hospitals. In addition to human casualties, nearly 5,000 horses and mules had been killed in the fighting and also needed to be dealt with. In the weeks following the battle, it was decided that a cemetery should be established for the Union soldiers killed at Gettysburg. 17 acres of land on the battlefield was purchased, and a noted landscape architect was hired to create a plan. Within a few months, the new cemetery had taken shape. The graves were arranged by state, and a fine monument was being erected in memory of the sacrifice made by these soldiers. Meanwhile, the Civil War was still raging. The country was growing tired of this seemingly endless war and its terrible cost. A large anti-war movement was spreading across the northern states, and terrible riots had broken out in New York City over the new draft law. The nation's survival was in doubt. The people needed to be reminded of what this war was about and why we needed to persevere and preserve the Union that these brave citizen soldiers were fighting and dying for. On November 19th of that year, a ceremony was held for the dedication of the new cemetery at Gettysburg. The program included music, prayers, and hymns. The keynote speaker was the Honorable Edward Everett of Boston. Mr. Everett had been president of Harvard, governor of Massachusetts, a senator, and secretary of state, and was one of the leading orators of his time. President Abraham Lincoln had also been invited to the ceremony and was asked only to give a few appropriate remarks. Mr. Everett spoke for 2 hours. Mr. Lincoln spoke for only a couple of minutes, but in those brief remarks, he brilliantly and concisely put the matter into context. He gave the people a stirring reminder of the price that has been paid in the importance of honoring this sacrifice, and by, I quote, taking increased devotion to that cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion. Now, as we listen to these immortal words, I ask you to imagine that it's 1863, and you're standing in that new cemetery on the battlefield of Gettysburg by the fresh graves of those brave soldiers on that day long ago.
Thanks, Jonathan. And I'd like to introduce Sarah Luna Sassine, who will read the Gettysburg Address.
77 years ago, our fathers brought forth on this continent a new nation, conceived in liberty, and dedicated to the proposition that all men are created equal. Now we are engaged in a great civil war, testing whether that nation, or any nation, so conceived and so dedicated, can long endure. We are met on the great battlefield of that war. We've come to dedicate a portion of that field as a final resting place for those who here gave their lives that that nation might live. It is altogether fitting and proper that we should do this. But in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, cannot consecrate, we cannot hallow this ground. The brave men, living and dead, who struggled here, have consecrated it, far above our poor power to add or detract. The world will little know, nor long remember what we say here, but it can never forget what they did here. It is for us the living, rather, to be dedicated here to the unfinished work which they who fought here have thus far so nobly advanced. It is rather for us to be here dedicated to the great task remaining before us, that from these honored dead we take increased devotion to the cause for which they gave the last full measure of devotion, that we here highly resolve that these dead shall not have died in vain, that this nation, under God, shall have a new birth of freedom, and that government of the people, by the people, for the people, shall not perish from the earth. Thank you.
Thank you, Sarah, very much. That was beautiful. And now we'll turn it over to Dan Clark.
As a United States Marine, obviously, I take the greatest pride in my service, and you will all know my hymn, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of... Outstanding. If you serve in the United States Army, you may know your hymn to be Caissons Go Rolling. Yes. If you serve in the iconic United States Navy, your hymn, Anchors. Oh, yeah. If you serve in the United States Air Force or Army Air Corps a long time ago, Wild Blue. Excellent. Now, in addition, there's a group of men and women who not only guard our shores, but they are deployed to combat venues all over the world. Their hymn, Semper Paratus. I'm talking about the United States Coast Guard. And finally, there's a group that was long forgotten. Until an act of Congress in 1988 ordered that they will also be recognized as veterans. For you see, they were pressed into service to take our boys overseas. Supplies, boots, bullets, bandages. Many times they were sunk by enemy submarines right off the coast of the United States. I'm talking about the Merchant Marines. And they also have a hymn, Heave Ho, My Lads, Heave Ho. Now, ladies and gentlemen in attendance, I would respectfully request, when I sing your hymn, if you have served, if you've had a family member who has served, been married to a serviceman or servicewoman, do me a favor. When I sing your hymn, I want to see your paw in the air so I can properly recognize you, okay? The order of military hymns is going to be the Merchant Marines, the Coast Guard, the Army, the Navy, the Air Force, and then the United States Marine Corps. You guys ready? I'll hear a sir, yes, sir. You ready? Come on. Do I have any Merchant Marines on deck? Merchant Marines. Heave ho, my lads, heave ho. It's a long, long way to go. It's a long, long pull, but the hatch is full. Braving the wind, braving the sea, fighting our treacherous foe. Heave ho, my lads, heave ho. Though the seas blow high and low, we can cross any ocean, sail any river. Give us those goods and we'll deliver. Down the submarines, we're the men of the Merchant Marines. Any Coast Guard? Where's my Coast Guard? Coast Guard, outstanding. We're always ready for the call. We place our trust in thee. Through surf and storm and howling gale, I shall our purpose be. Semper Paratus is our guide, our fame and glory too. To fight, to save, and fight, to die. I, Coast Guard, we are for you. Army, where's my army? Of us to fight for the right and to build a nation's might, and the army goes rolling along. About of all we have done, fight until the battle's won, and the army goes rolling along. But it's high, high, hey, the army's on its way. Call up your cadence out and strong. 2, 3, for wherever we go, you will always know that the army goes rolling along. Navy! Anchors away, my boys, anchors away. Farewell to college joys, we sail at break of day. Through our last night on shore, drink to the foam, until we meet once more. Here's wish you a happy voyage home. Where's my Air Force or Army Air Corps? Off we go into the wild blue yonder, flying high into the sun. Oh, damnly time, sputter flames from under, handsome boy in the gun. Off we go, assuming to meet our thunder, up in one hell of a row. We live in fame, or down in flame. Now let's get stop the U.S. Air Force. All right, Marines, lock your body up. From the hulls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli, oh, we will fight our country's battles in the air, on land, and the sea. Of us to fight for right and freedom, and to keep our honor clean.
We are proud to claim the title of United States Marines. Arrah! From our merchant marines to our Coast Guardsmen, our Army, our Navy, our Air Force, our United States Marine Corps, and now our Space Force. We wish you Godspeed and stay safe.
You do such a great job with that, Dan. Thank you. We're so lucky to have you here doing that with us. We now have a few speakers offer a few words here on Memorial Day. I'd like to introduce your Senator Michael Rush.
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, sir. All right, we'll try that one more time. Good morning. Good morning, sir. Good morning. All right, outstanding. Very good. I'm grateful and privileged to join you this morning to offer some brief remarks, and they will be brief, on the extreme importance of Memorial Day. As an Iraq War veteran and as a naval officer, I'm honored to be with you today. And especially honored to have my son with me today, James Rush, here, helping me out. Multiple ceremonies. I would particularly like to thank the organizers of the outstanding event. Chris, thank you. Every year, beyond, you know, it takes a coach to lead the team, and every year, he nails it every year. I want to thank the Westwood Police Department, the Westwood Fire Department. I want to thank give them a round. They certainly, I'm telling you, you folks know how blessed you are to live in such a wonderful town, and it just doesn't happen. It's because you have dedicated officials who love this town and care about you, so I'm honored to work with them and support them in any way that I can, so thank you so much. The elected officials here today, they've made it their goal to support our veterans, our Gold Star families, and those currently serving. I want to thank your Board of Selectmen. You have an outstanding Board of Selectmen, as you all know. Selectman Walsh, Selectman Hickey, Selectman Gotti, thank you so much for all you're doing to make the town as great as it is. We have our elected town clerk, Clerk Powers is over here, so we thank you for all you're doing. Chris Coleman is doing an outstanding job here, so thank you for all you do. I have the privilege to work each and every day downtown Boston, and I can tell you this, you have the heart and soul of the town of Westwood working for you each and every day in our outstanding friend, Representative Paul Mcmurtry. So, just briefly, you have taken time out of your busy lives to be here today to honor those who have paid the ultimate price for freedom, and in particularly our Gold Star families. And as I say that word here today, there is no greater sacrifice in our nation than for those who died and those who were left behind. And we have with us today a true hero, a Gold Star mother. Christine Devlin is here today. So nobody pays the greatest sacrifice. I have said before, on Veterans Day, we honor those who have served. On Armed Forces Day, we honor those currently serving. But on Memorial Day, we honor those who have paid the ultimate sacrifice for our freedom, and their families who know all too well what General William Tecumseh Sherman said, war is hell. As we gather here this morning around the world, there are soldiers, sailors, Marines, airmen, and Coast Guardsmen standing the watch. As Dan sang the service songs, we are reminded they are ready to make the same ultimate sacrifice as the brave women and men and their families who we remember this and every Memorial Day. One of my favorite quotes is from General Douglas MacArthur, who said of the perished soldiers of the First World War, "I do not know the dignity of their birth, but I do know the glory of their death. They died unquestioning, uncomplaining, with faith in their hearts and on their lips, the hope that we would go on to victory. Always for them, it was duty, honor, and country." It is our job as civilians to ensure that the sacrifice of our brave service members who gave their lives never are in vain. Please take this opportunity today and every day to remember those who did pay the ultimate sacrifice. Because of General Logan's General Order Number 11, communities across the Commonwealth and across our nation will honor these brave women and men's memories today, and we stand here in awe, in total awe by their bravery and selfless service to our nation. Let us work together to ensure that the war dead have never, ever died in vain by ensuring that each and every day is, in fact, a Memorial Day. Thank you all. God bless you, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Senator Rush. I'd now like to introduce Representative Paul Mcmurtry.
Good morning. Today we come together as we do each and every Memorial Day, indebted as a community, a commonwealth, and a country to respectfully pay tribute and reverence to the courageous men and women who have fallen in defense of our nation while wearing the uniform of our country. And I am honored to be here along with you and Senator Rush and select board members, Michael Walsh, John Hickey, and our newest member, Robert Gotti, as well as Town Clerk Dottie Powers and Town Administrator Chris Coleman, and the Westwood Fire Department Honor Guard and our Veterans Councils, and most especially, as Senator Rush indicated, our Gold Star mom, Christine Devlin, and her family, and as well to Chris Mcewan and the entire Memorial Day Committee for dutifully organizing today's ceremony. Even as we emerge from a global pandemic, the town of Westwood, as it always has, acknowledges the service and sacrifice of fallen soldiers, sailors, airmen, and Marines, and the unimaginable loss to their families. Each of us lives freely because of the selflessness and ultimate sacrifice of those brave men and women, and today we pause, reflect, and remember. This session, I have the distinction of being appointed to the chair of Committee on Veterans and Federal Affairs by Speaker Mariano, and working along with Senator Rush and our colleagues in the legislature, Massachusetts will continue to prioritize, recognize, and honor all those who serve in the United States military, both living and deceased. And as our long weekend continues and we set off to perhaps socialize with family and friends, let us take the time to reflect, even for a moment, on the true meaning of Memorial Day, and further, take the opportunity to share our thoughts and reflections with those we encounter. By doing so, not only gives one another the opportunity to learn, but most importantly, remind each other of our obligations to remember. And it is only with those moments of reflection and remembrance that the lives of the fallen service members will have not been lost in vain. And as your state representative, I'm most humbled to participate in this meaningful ceremony in service of remembrance. Thank you all for being here today, and thank you for honoring those who have laid down their lives for all of us. We are a better nation, and Westwood is a better community for it. May God bless each of you and our fallen service members. May God bless the town of Westwood, and God bless the United States of America.
Thank you, Representative McMurtry. Next up, I'd like to welcome the chair of our select board, Michael Walsh.
Thank you, Chris, and good morning to all those who came to our most solemn ceremony of the year here in Westwood. We're here to honor those who gave the ultimate sacrifice in our great country, in our great little town of Westwood. I, on behalf of the Select Board members, including Mr. Hickey and Mr. Rob Gotti, would like to thank you for joining us this morning. To our guest, our Gold Star mother, Mrs. Devlin, our town officials, our students, our parents, grandparents, military personnel, veterans, and most importantly, our Memorial Day Committee. Thank you for making this such a special occasion in our town. This year, perhaps more than ever, the death of so many we know and love have weighed in our thoughts and in our hearts. We come together today from all backgrounds, genders, religion, political affiliations, as Americans united to pay respect to those who fought to give us the right to be free. We are here to say thank you to those who gave the ultimate sacrifice. I left Falmouth this morning like I do every Memorial Day morning, and I drive by the National Cemetery in Bourne. On Route 28, where so many of who've served our country are buried. But to get into that ceremony, you have to go through Heroes Circle. Each and every person who puts on a uniform for this great country loves it so much that they're willing to die for all that we stand for. Too many did not make it home for their families. Today and every day, I ask you just to stop, take a few seconds and say a prayer, or reflect on the reason that you took time to come here today, and stop and thank America's heroes for their sacrifice, and remember that they are truly heroes. Pray for their families, because for their families, every day is Memorial Day. They gave it all, protecting every American's right to express your thoughts and your opinions, and more importantly, to make those known. We need to be united again, a little nicer to our fellow Americans. So in their honor, I ask you to follow the words of Mr. Adam Grant, a top researcher who believes that you should always argue like you were right, but listen like you were wrong. We are all part of this great country, and so many have given to protect it, and I ask you to think about them on this Memorial Day.
Thank you, Chairman Walsh. So we didn't have a parade this year, but we do have a Grand Marshal, and I want to tell you a little bit about him, and then he'll address you with a few words. I don't know if people noticed, but there was one person in the crowd that raised their hand twice during Dan's song, because Ned Richardson served in the Coast Guard and in the Army. Tell you a little bit about him. Ed was born in 1944 in Boston. I'm going to go by his name, Ned. I think he prefers that, correct? And with his wife, Catherine, raised their two children here in Westwood on I believe it was Webster Street, correct? Ned started at, he graduated from Boston College High School, and he started at Suffolk University, but he left Suffolk and joined the Army. And he told me some interesting stories about his time in the Army, but he started out as a artillery crewman and somehow ended up going to linguistics training and becoming a Russian linguist. And he sat basically in Berlin with a team of other folks. I think he calls them sort of a ragtag bunch that he's still in touch with. But they monitored Russian and German, East German communications. It's done a little differently today. In the old days, it was literally listening. Anyway, he got out of the Army in 1967, went back to Suffolk, graduated from Suffolk and graduated from Suffolk Law, and then he was on his way over to look at federal jobs posted at the JFK Federal Building, and he passed a recruiting poster, and there was a big, fancy, professional, colorful, enticing poster for all the four major forces at the time, and there was a little index card taped down in the corner that said, "Consider the Coast Guard, we're military too." The rest is history. Ned ended up serving from 1974 to 78 in the JAG Corps, Judge Advocate General, the legal side of the military forces. He left full-time active duty in 1978, continued in the reserves until 1993, serving over 24 years. He served on various town boards, the Board of Health, the Permanent Building Committee, the Planning Board. He's an active member of the Rotary and the American Legion. So I'd like to ask you to give Ned a warm welcome.
Well, I'm glad we had that conversation 2 days ago, Chris. You know? But this is a very solemn day. This is when we remember those who were killed, wounded, or missing in our nation's wars. And I feel rather inadequate for the task. And as I said, next time, get somebody who was actually shot at. I was never, okay? And I'm not going to pretend that I was in any kind of danger that those folks experienced. We did do important work, I thought, though. I started as an 18-year-old artillery crewman in the Massachusetts National Guard, and for some bizarre reason, in a fit of late adolescent indecision, I decided to join the regular Army. And I went to what was then used to be formerly called the Army Language School at Monterey, California, for a year studying Russian and more Russian, and then wound up in Berlin working for the Army Security Agency. And it was an interesting job. Site 3, Teufelsberg, was an artificial hill. It's the highest point in what was then West Berlin. And it was built out of the rubble from World War II that was not being recycled by the Trümmelfrauen, the rubble women, okay? They could recycle bricks, but they couldn't recycle the concrete. And it was in the British sector, so we were under the supervision of the National Security Agency. We worked with people from the Royal Air Force, Royal Signals. Most of us were Army Security Agency, a couple of Air Force folks. We worked 24/7. We had 4 shifts. We worked 6 days, 2 days off, a swing shift, 2 days off, 6 mids, 2 days off, all around the clock. It never shut down, not until 1992. And it was interesting work. Had some interesting things happen. We were what was called an intercept site. You may have heard of other intercept sites. I'll give you the 2 names, USS Liberty and USS Pueblo. They did the same job, communication, electronic intercept. Well, I got out of the Army and went to college and law school. And as Chris pointed out, I saw that 3x5 card down, you know, as a good traditional Irish American, I was down there looking for a government job because I had been working as an associate in the Boston law firm. I had just seen my first 12% mortgage. And I said, the real estate business is not going to be that great for a while. And I got the job and went to Governor's Island, and it was a very interesting job. Maritime safety, oil pollution cases, military justice for the occasional misbehaving person, and the physical disability boards. It was great variety. I got out of the Coast Guard, and they don't have any legal billets in the Coast Guard Reserve, so I cross-trained in port security and readiness planning. And my last 2 reserve jobs, which were just as interesting as the regular jobs, I was assigned to a joint Coast Guard Navy command, and I was the liaison officer, Coast Guard liaison officer to the Massachusetts Army National Guard. I guess I'd come complete full circle. Why do I say that? Well, now you know I got to put my hand up twice. But I will say one last thing, and that is, it was an absolute privilege to wear my country's uniform. I don't regret a minute of it. I learned something every day. I learned about my fellow countrymen. I learned about the world. And I just would say I wouldn't trade it for anything. So I thank you very much for making me Grand Marshal. I'm not going to pretend that I was in some sort of danger like the people who we're honoring today. But that's it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ned. I was on a submarine for 10 years and no one ever shot at me either. But what you did, you were in a place of more danger and importance than you give yourself credit for, and I appreciate it, and I'm sure everyone here does too. On a lighter note, to round out a joke, Ned said it's a good thing we talked 2 days ago. So I forget who it was that called Ned to ask him if he'd be our Grand Marshal, probably about a month ago. I've known Ned for years, but I didn't know him well enough to introduce him like that. So I sent him an email, and he sent me back his resume. And I wrote, no, I'm looking for things like, your family and, your military history. And he called me, I think it was Friday, and he said, why do you need to know all that stuff? And I was like, so that I can introduce you. Introduce me for what? He didn't know he was Grand Marshal. So, you did a great job in a pinch, thank you. I'm going to introduce Dick Pastner, but first I just want to, because the next sort of section is going to flow a bit, and I like to give people a warning of the end. Dick's going to read General Logan's order that established Memorial Day and the reason we're here today. Tom McClintock is going to play the bagpipes. We'll have the national anthem, and the Legion's going to fire a volley. That's the part I want to warn you about, because with no warning, it tends to shake people a bit. Don't worry, they're going to go outside the tent, not in here. So without further ado, I'd like to introduce Richard Pastner, the commander of American Legion Post 320.
So what was interesting this morning is Ned came up to me and said, why did you pick me to be the Grand Marshal? And I said, you volunteered. Somehow he forgot that he had volunteered. But thank you for your service, Ned, and thanks to everyone else for their service that has served. Before I read General Logan's order, which is a fitting end, round up today's events, beginning with the Gettysburg Address, I'd just like to offer a few comments myself about today. We're here today to honor all of our fallen comrades, Fallujah, the Philippines, Quezon, Kandahar, Beirut, Grenada. We honor the more than 1 million American heroes from the American Revolution through the global war on terrorism and every battle in between. More than 1,600 Americans have lost their lives fighting in covert operations and Cold War battles that occurred between the designated war period since the attack on Pearl Harbor in 1941. We honor their sacrifice as much as we honor those lost in World War II, Korea, or Vietnam. Our organization, the American Legion, recognizes that when rounds are coming your way, there's no such thing as a small war. The location is unimportant. It's the hearts of these men and women that truly matters. They answered their country's call, and it's that devotion that led them to sacrifice their lives for the country that we all love. They didn't join to become heroes. They went with thousands of other young men and women to help liberate the oppressed and topple truly evil regimes. Today, critics denigrate America, but can a nation that produces such remarkable men and women be anything but a force for good? We can offer our support. We can place flags and wreaths at their graves. We can donate to charities that provide for their families. And we can look at their surviving brothers and sisters in arms and say, thank you for your service. The decisions leading to war are those of policymakers. But the price paid for carrying out that policy can and is unbelievably painful. Ask any of the Gold Star families. That's why we're here today, to honor the sacrifices made by the 1 million heroes who died while defending this country since the American Revolution. Can we do more to create a country that is worthy of such sacrifice? Can we insist that our policymakers always consider the true costs of their decisions and only send men and women to war when all other options have been fully considered? We can only hope that our elected officials show such wisdom. War is often not the best policy, but the heroes that wars produce are the best of America, and they deserve our continued recognition. Thank you for being here this morning, and God bless America. And now General Logan's order. This is 1868. The Veterans Organization of the Civil War of the time was the Grand Army of the Republic. General John Logan issued this order following the Civil War. We are organized, comrades, as our regulations tell us, for the purpose, among other things, of preserving and strengthening those kind and fraternal feelings which have bound together the soldiers, sailors, and Marines who united to suppress the late rebellion. What can aid more to assure this result than by cherishing tenderly the memory of our heroic dead, who made their breasts a barricade between our country and its foe? Their soldier lives were the reveille of freedom to a race in chains, and their death a tattoo of rebellious tyranny in arms. We should guard their graves with sacred vigilance. All that the consecrated wealth and taste of the nation can add to their adornment and security is but a fitting tribute to the memory of her slain defenders. Let no wanton foot tread rudely on such hallowed grounds. Let pleasant paths invite the coming and going of reverent visitors and fond mourners. Let no vandalism of avarice or neglect, no ravages of time testify to the present or to the coming generations that we have forgotten, as a people, the cost of a free and undivided republic. If other eyes grow dull and other hands slack, and other hearts cold in the solemn trust, ours shall keep it well as long as the light and warmth of life remain in us. Let us then, at the time appointed, gather around their sacred remains and garland the passionless mounds above them with choicest flowers of springtime. Let us raise above them the dear old flag they saved from dishonor. Let us in this solemn presence renew our pledges to aid and assist those whom they have left among us as the sacred charges upon the nation's gratitude, the soldiers and sailors, widows and orphans. It is the purpose of the Commander-in-Chief to inaugurate this observance with the hope it will be kept up from year to year, while a survivor of the war remains to honor the memory of his departed comrades. He earnestly desires the public press to call attention to this order and lend its friendly aid in bringing it to the notice of comrades in all parts of the country in time for simultaneous compliance therewith. Department commanders will use every effort to make this order effective. By order of John A. Logan, Commander-in-Chief. At this time, I'd ask everyone to join me in a moment of silence. Thank you.
At the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watch was so gallantly streaming, and the rockets red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave.
A captain from the Union Army heard the cries of a dying soldier one night. He left his tent in the darkness and he went out over the hill and he found this dying soldier. He pulled him back into the light of his tent, and to his horror, this dying soldier was his son, a Confederate soldier. His son dies in his arms. The captain asks his commanding officer, "Sir, may I have a military burial for my son?" "Denied, Captain. Your son, he is the enemy, sir." "May I have a military band to play for my son?" "Denied, Captain. Your son is the enemy. You may have one instrument." The captain chooses the bugle. For before going off to war, his son was a music student. As the captain reached into the uniform trousers of his son, he pulls out a piece of paper with these simple notes written upon it. These notes have become the song we use to memorialize the men and women who have given that last full measure of devotion to this great nation. It is time to render honors to that song. Taps.
So we didn't get to see the Girl Scouts and daisies and brownies decorate the graves, but we do have, come on up, all of you, don't have to speak. The girls brought some flowers and made a card for Mrs. Devlin, right? Thank you, girls. And thank you, Mrs. Devlin. We're going to have Father Paul Soper offer a benediction, but before he does, I just want to make a couple of quick comments. First of all, you heard a lot of people thank me for all the work I've done, and I'm telling you that I didn't do a whole lot. I get to be a pretty face, and even that's questionable. But I do want to thank our selectmen for supporting a strong commitment to Memorial Day. And I want to thank Chris Coleman, Dottie Powers, our town clerk, Tish Healy. There's so many people that actually did the heavy lifting to make this all happen. There's a group that I want to point out specifically, and I hope I didn't forget to print their names because I'm at the risk of missing someone. I did want to read their names. Oh, here it is. Nope. I didn't print it out, but I'll remember as many as I can. There's a group that came out during the week and on Saturday in a pouring cold rain and decorated the graves. It was Tish Healy, Dottie Powers. I hope you two will yell out some of the names because I had them listed. And we had the Westwood girls and boys track team came out. Tish, remind me who else came out. I had them all written down. I know I'm going to.
Joan Courtney Murray.
Oh, yep, Joan Courtney Murray. Kate Wynn, our new planning board member. Mike Powers and Mike and Dottie's granddaughter. The point is they were out in the pouring cold rain. A whole gang of folks, and I know I've missed some names. I apologize for that, but Imelda Cavey, Mary Ellen Gross, LaRose,
Rotarian
Laurie Fevreau from the Rotary. I know we're going to end up missing people, and again, I apologize, but they were out again in the pouring rain. And yes, yeah. With that, let's give them a round of applause. They're probably still drying out. So Father Soper, if you would lead us in the benediction, and then we're going to hear the bagpipes again with Amazing Grace to end our ceremony. Thank you very much.
Let us pray. Bow your heads and pray for God's blessing. May the Lord bless you and keep you. May he cause his face to shine upon you and be gracious to you. May he look upon you with kindness and grant you his peace. And may the Lord bless you abundantly in his most holy name. Amen.
I love the fade of the bagpipes. Thank you all very much for coming today.
Thank you.
Father Soper.
Thanks very much.